Welcome to ETHDam, to ETHDam, to ETHDam, to ETHDam, to ETHDam.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So let's kick it off. Let's start from the short, perhaps, presentations. Please share with the audience a bit more about yourself. What are you doing in the space and why you're here?
Oh, me? I was distracted by the mic. Sorry.
Oh. I mean, Aaron, perhaps we can start from you.
Okay. My name's Aaron Day. For the last 2.5 years, I've basically stopped everything that I'm doing to warn people about the threat of CBDCs. I ran for president of the United States as a Republican to raise awareness on the issue. Vivek Ramaswamy read my book and in New Hampshire pushed Trump to come out against CBDCs in part based on my hounding him. And now I go around the world doing workshops, not only warning people about the threats, but teaching people how to live on privacy coins as an alternative. And in particular, I've been focusing on Zano and Monero.
Hi, I'm Ruben. I am the project steward and founder of Firo. It's a privacy-focused cryptocurrency that used to be called Zcoin. We've been around since 2016. I got into crypto, especially privacy crypto, because I think back in 2007, I was a lawyer for 10 years before I went into crypto, but back in 2007, I started a VPN service, and I was cut off from my payment rails. My bank accounts were frozen just because I was doing something seen as not even illegal. It was just something not quite liked, and that's how I started turning into privacy cryptocurrencies. And with the Firo project, has been behind a lot of privacy protocols. I think we were the first ones that implemented zero coin into the main, and different than zero cash. We've built Sigma, Lelantus, Spark, which has influenced other projects like even Monero and also Beam as well. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Yeah.
Hello everyone. First of all, thank you a lot for coming, and thank you ETHDam crew for having this amazing event. It's my second time actually. I've been in the blockchain ecosystem for 3 years now, and I'm originally from Mina. Mina is world's first ZK L1. As you know, ZK is a very evolving technology, and it has a lot of use cases. And I believe Mina's unique point is that they use everything about ZK. So there is the scalability aspect of ZK coming with it. There is the succinctness aspect. There is the privacy aspect. And today's topic is privacy. I believe ZK's privacy is quite unique in some ways. And yes, other encryption solutions are also very promising. And for sure, there are different ways of achieving privacy. But I think there's a lot to discuss about ZK. So today I'm here to actually, explain ZK's point in privacy applications.
Well, short intro about myself as well. Hi, everybody. I'm Marina Petrichenko, known as Crypto Marina. I'm in the space since 2017 and in the privacy space for over the last 4 years, I think. And currently, I'm a growth lead at the Codex Storage, a decentralized storage network, which is part of Free Technology, a venture studio focused on tech for good, and we have a bunch of privacy-preserving companies in our portfolio. So let's start with the questions. Let's be honest, the word privacy-preserving been thrown around a lot, and actually became even like some sort of like marketing term, which lots of companies use, including Web2 companies, ironically. But if we're talking about Web3 specifically, what are the minimum properties a protocol must guarantee to claim is a privacy-preserving one?
I mean, I guess I would say unlinkability, untraceability, and confidentiality.
Well, at least for me, when we have a lot of experience in building privacy protocols, but I would say it'll be the sender, receiver, amounts, maybe even asset type, and also the transaction graph, at least when we're talking about transactional privacy in a privacy protocol. Yeah.
You mean financial transactions have to be
yeah, like things like Monero and things like that. You need to hide all these things in a privacy protocol. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, like both of these are great answers. But personally, I don't feel that wider about privacy. I think it depends a lot on the application. And it's about revealing as much as you should. And in some cases, you need to reveal the receiver. Like if you are doing a fund, anonymous funding, it's a private application, and you want the funders to be anonymous, but the funded party should be public, should be transparent, verifiable fund amounts as well. Maybe not individual, helps funds. But in these type of applications, I think privacy can be dependent. So I believe it depends a lot on the application. And I don't believe like general purpose privacy use cases. I believe in general purpose privacy technologies where we adapt to our applications, basically.
That's great. And I guess like every project working with privacy has to balance a lot of things, right, in order to grow and be successful. Let's talk about balance between privacy and composability. Do you think it is possible to build modular systems without weakening the guarantees, as it seems?
I do think it is possible. I mean, I think Zano does this to a certain degree, using the same underlying stealth and ring signatures, with the wallet integrated browser and marketplace. And so what we'll be launching soon with Zano is something called confidential layer, where you will be able to use a bridgeless as an L1 and basically connect your Bitcoin Cash, and Ethereum and bridge right into Zano and kind of swap from within that system.
That's exciting.
Sure, I'm not an expert on composability, but I mean, from what I know, the systems in DeFi, there's always like this pools of privacy when you're talking about like things like Tornado Cash or Railgun. They all kind of like separate anonymity sets. And I mean, I've seen some work where, they're trying to build anonymity sets that span across several different chains. I haven't seen that in production. I mean, I'm being willing to be proven wrong, but it's always like the conversion, especially when you are building on the system, something like Ethereum or Solana, when it's not like, built for privacy, there's always going to be some leakage of data. But I think probably Yunus is more expert on this type of things.
Yeah. Because like with Mina, actually, it's impossible to do something without modularism. If you want to build a meaningful application with Mina, you need to go modular. And I don't think modularism is a way to do privacy. I think it's the only way. If you want to do something really private, I think operating this on different layers is the only way. Because otherwise, at some point, it converges to pseudonymity, meaning that like independent stuff can be identified to be coming from one party. And I believe modularism is the safest choice here. And as a layer to combine all, like in terms of providing interoperability between different layers, I think it's client-side, which is the ultimate privacy layer. If you can make everything small enough, verifiable enough to be inside the browser, then you can just use client to bridge any knowledge between different modular layers and keep your privacy in the ultimate way. That's why Mina is designed to be a 20 kilobyte blockchain, so that you can actually adapt any privacy preserving applications results, I would say, the Merkle witness inside your browser. So you can verify the entire Mina history inside your browser as a single proof. That was the idea.
Ruben, I really like that you shared some real-world example. Guys, perhaps we can elaborate more because it's like more down to earth. Like, can you share more real-world examples where privacy was broken due to integration, like pure integration between the protocols?
Of course. So do I start? Or? Go ahead. Okay, sorry. So I think a good use case, I don't know if this is a good example, but I want to make a comparison to Tornado Cash. So you know that Tornado Cash is a pooling-based privacy application. So basically there is this pool and you submit your funds into the pool and you receive a zero-knowledge witness so that you can prove without revealing your identity that you have some unclaimed funds in the pool. So you can actually transfer money to someone else off-chain. That's a great application, but there's a big limitation is that the anonymity of the system depends on number of users using the system. If there's only one person joining the pool, there is no more anonymity. Everyone sees who received funds. And that's like a very easy way to break privacy. You can be like, okay, if there are more than 2 people, then there's no problem. It's not that simple because in the end, like, as the information is not infinite, there's always something that you can extract from a limited set. When we say we are breaking privacy, we don't necessarily mean that it is fully broken and everyone knows everything about you. Think of the use cases of like client-side encrypted messaging applications, Signal or Telegram, I don't know. In these applications, yeah, messages are client-side encrypted. So full privacy, no. Because in the end, the fact that you submit the message's size maybe, and this type of information can be known. For instance, think of there's a legal case, and the prosecutor says that like there was this message arriving at the victim at 2 a.m. in the morning, and that Signal can prove. Because the message is encrypted, they don't know what was written in the message maybe, but in the end, the time of message is there. So I think the best way of solving these type of issues is using different layers. I want to name an application that we recently designed. It's actually a very basic problem, vaulting, but we approached it from a very novel perspective, where we targeted this specific problem, and we said, how can we improve this to the highest point possible? And the solution was, again, modularism. In this voting application, it's called ZK Vote, by the way, but without the E in the end, just a tweak. So yeah, in the ZK Vote, we are enabling full modularism, and you can actually integrate any layer in between or just take it out. The submitting of votes happens through a DA layer. You can use any DA layer you like, or multiple DA layers at the same time even. For instance, we are supporting Celestia Avail. And while submitting your transaction to the DA, you can anonymizing by putting any layer in between, just like a VPN. For instance, there is Namada, a privacy-preserving token. There's Penumbra, a privacy DEX, maybe you heard. So you can actually use these type of applications where it's not based only on pooling, but there are other solutions to make sure you are accessing a full private state. You can make your vote fully anonymized. And I think like that's a good example of real-life use cases where privacy is even better for some type of applications.
I'd just like to quickly add on that. I mean, I think the question was like, where the leakages happen. I mean, I think Tornado Cash is a great example, especially with the early versions where you had to sort of mint or put your notes in fixed denominations. On top of that, the asset types were kind of exposed. So like, for example, if I wanted to launder stuff, if there were not many people that were anonymizing in USDC, then that anonymity set was smaller, that's why, and especially when you're trying to do big amounts, when you have to break them into denominations, maybe there's not many people in the 100 ETH denomination and stuff like that. Obviously, a lot of these issues have been, I would say, mitigated, like the newer systems also hide the asset types, but obviously, there's always going to be that leakage as long as there's that transparent layer that you have to kind of bridge in and out, even from within a privacy system. So, I mean, that's why we kind of built like systems that can kind of build for privacy from the ground up. Yeah.
100%, that's a great example. Aaron, what about you? Do you have some examples on your mind?
No, I don't have anything to add on that one.
All right, let's talk then more about ZK. Yunus, you was mentioning you really wanted to talk more about this, so this question is to you. Do you think we are sometimes over-indexing on zero-knowledge proofs? What are the trade-offs compared to MPC, Mixnets, and the threshold crypto?
Very nice question. So first of all, I have a talk after this one about like different privacy solutions, and I actually touched there about ZK a lot. So if you're interested more, I'll be talking 15 minutes about only this. But
we don't have that much time.
Yeah, I know. As a short answer, I think ZK's power comes from its limits. In the long run, ZK converged to a world where proving something is as easy as doing it. And if you have that, then everything becomes private just because it's easy. And ZK's privacy does not depend on some hard problem. So in most of the privacy solutions, there is this hard problem that you can't crack. But there is no guarantee that this problem won't be cracked at some point. Last year in April, like about a year ago, there was this paper about quantum computers attacks on lattice-based problems. It was actually, attacking against the security of FHE. It was disproved like 2 weeks later. But even the very existence of this paper and the fact that it took 2 weeks for scientists to disprove this, I think shows us that we can never be sure that hard problems will stay hard in the future. But with ZK, that's not the case. And it's quite easy to see. There's nothing cryptographic about it. The ZK proof size, it doesn't depend on number of inputs that you have. That clearly shows that there is no privacy breach. Because like if privacy was, be breachable, so I could have, extract some information from the proof, this would mean that I can actually converge infinite amount of information into a single bit, which is impossible by definition. So it's very clear that ZK's privacy can never be broken because there is no hard problem. There's a very physical limit that can never be breached because of like very logical limits. So I think that's the big advantage of ZK over some other technologies. I don't think that like encapsulates all other technologies, but I think for most of them, I can state this one.
Can I quickly add? Yeah,
Sure.
because I do think that the question talking about like, is there over-reliance on ZK versus Mixnets and what's MPC methods, they're quite different because like they're each privacy building blocks that are trying to solve different things. It's not that we're over-relying on ZK, it's just that we're finding the thing that does it well. Like Mixnets, it's in like network layer privacy, you don't really need ZK kind of there, right? And you're talking about like MPCs, yeah, good for like, some sort of secret dating app or, some sort of auction data, but it's not that the appropriate tool for, let's say, transactional privacy. So yeah, I don't think we're over-reliant. I think, we just have to be cognizant that, sometimes like, especially among some of the less educated privacy proponents, they'll be like, yeah, in this tech, ZK is the best, FHE is the best, everything else sucks, ours is superior. And that's kind of silly. Like we pick the two and see how it performs there, not like, oh, this technology is necessarily superior or not. Like, yeah. So.
Right. Sometimes it's in some cases also like a buzzword, and like lots of companies using this technology and like in their own way, in not necessary way. So it's great that you actually mentioned Mixnet, because anyway, even if you encrypt the data, like there is still leakage, like in terms of metadata, and you can track behavior patterns and so on. Do you want to give first of all some examples about the companies and protocols that solving this issue? And second question here would be, do you think it's obligatory if you want to be a privacy-preserving, censorship-resistant protocol to have it in the data layer, or it should be an optional add-on? Who wants to take this one?
Well, I mean, I think with something like that, it's probably better to be optional because we need people to be able to actually use these tools, and if you put too much of a barrier up front, it makes it almost impossible to use. So I know with Zano, for instance, you can use VPN, you can use Tor optionally, and you probably should, but it's not an absolute precondition. And I think we really have to focus on the ease of these tools, because I go around the country introducing people that have never used crypto before. And that's actually most people. I mean, in the US, last quarter, I think 0.5% of Americans actually made a transaction. And so imagine you're in front of 100 boomers and you're trying to onboard them all at once to a privacy coin. It's truly an experience that you've never witnessed before. You'll learn that what we have accepted as natives, digital natives, is completely foreign to the overwhelming majority of people out there. So we really need to focus on usability and making it easy to get people in the door.
Really good point.
When it comes to like metadata leakage, I don't think it's possible, especially when you have a blockchain, to eliminate it completely. I mean, examples of metadata is like, all right, what time the transaction was posted on the blockchain. I mean, sure, you may kind of obfuscate it, delay it with things like Mixnets, but there's still like a band of time there's gonna be something there. Or even like the size of the transaction, how many inputs. Those are metadata that's quite tough to remove completely, but that's why, it's like with all these things, sometimes cache is better. Like there's very little metadata that's being transferred there. Obviously, I mean, like the good work that NIM is doing with Mixnets, and I think that at least on the network layer does, I would say, provide sufficient level of like metadata protection, at least on the network layer. And do you actually require it? I mean, I take the point that especially when you're dealing with privacy-preserving cryptocurrencies, there should be some sort of base layer, network layer anonymity. I mean, that's just my point of view. I mean, a lot of projects, for example, Firo, we use Dandelion++, Monero also I think had it in the last few years. Mimblewimble all relies on all this type of things. And although it's not like a super high level of privacy that can stand against like nation state actors, it's relatively like low latency. It's quite easy to implement, and it offers like a pretty good base layer of privacy for everyone. While if you don't have it, then it's quite easy to tie a transaction to a particular IP address, which to me is a huge metadata leakage. I mean, yeah, we can choose to use VPNs and Tor, but most people aren't going to choose that. And I think when you get people too used to that, then that can be a bit dangerous. So yeah.
Yeah, I actually agree on this point, and yeah, of course, and everything should be optional. You can never force people to do anything. But my understanding of privacy is a bit different. I want to put the emphasis on something else. I think with privacy solutions, onboarding companies is easier than onboarding users. Users, they don't know that they need privacy until they lose something that matters to them. So privacy is not something that you are born with. You need to learn it, especially in the online environment. But with companies, it's different. Especially in like developed countries, legal side of things is really hard. And companies actually need privacy because it costs them a lot not having it. For instance, let's say you are storing data. If you don't have good privacy guarantees, you can lose everything. Or better, if you don't have data, you can actually save all this money costing you because of storing this data, even if it's encrypted. So that's why I believe in some use cases, having forced privacy can be an option for companies so that their costs decrease. Think of a data tracking use case, for instance. The company wants to track the data, but they don't actually need the whole data. They just need to learn something from data. Let's say they are training an AI. What if they can privately train the AI in user's own computer? Then they don't need to even access the data inside their own servers. They don't get the data. There's full ultimate privacy. Data never leaves client side. And this is much more profitable for the company because they don't actually get billed because of the storing of this data. So it's much cheaper for them. So in this use case, it's really a win-win-win situation. Legals win because there is no more legal problems. Companies win. They are not paying this extra cost because of having this very sensitive data stored in their servers. And users win because they're not sharing their data. And in that kind of a use case, in order to have this win-win scenario, the privacy should not be optional, it should be forced. So,
good point. And you was mentioning actually AI in your answer. Coming back to this topic a bit, what does future-proof privacy look like in the face of quantum threats or powerful AI-based surveillance?
Yeah, I think again referring to the previous point, the ultimate privacy is client-side. There is nothing better. If data is online, then it can be decrypted at some point. You can never learn. No, sorry. And there is this attack that we call store now, decrypt later. So big companies, they can just store the encrypted data as it is. And once the decryption method is available, they can decrypt it. So if you really want to stay private, you should not put anything online. Because once it's online, you can never delete. I think it's the same for quantum and AI and these type of problems. If you really make sure that the data stays with you, keep it on you all the times, especially biometric data. Don't put your biometric data somewhere.
What do you think about this, guys?
I'm not so comfortable with that answer. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, don't put anything online, don't store everything yourself. I mean, of course that's correct, but also not very helpful, I guess. I think one of the things that when we're talking about quantum adversaries, we're talking about the cryptographic primitives that quantum computers break, right? Like a lot of us use the discrete log problem. So a lot of existing cryptography along that all, I would say, privacy cryptocurrencies use currently. Maybe the exception of coin, join, or Mimble, maybe a bit of that. But I would say that all of that cryptography breaks, but it's not a problem that you cannot solve. There are quantum resistant algorithms, like stuff that like Starkware are doing as well. As he's mentioned, lattice stuff, Lamport signatures. I mean, we are still quite far away from it, and a lot of people say, why don't you do it now? The problem is that all these cryptographic primitives that are quantum resistant are not performant today. They really suck. Like, you want to use the thing, or you want to have a transaction that takes like 20 seconds to verify or something like that, right? So we are moving there. We are, moving towards quantum resistant cryptography, but we're not quite there yet. And I think even Monero has been like, and I know Luke Parker, Kayaba has been really pushing for quantum resistant thing, and we should be really looking into those things, but we're not there yet. But yeah, that's just my point, that we have to standardize those things. Yeah.
If you had asked me about this 2 hours ago, I would have said, yeah, we've got a lot of time to think about it. I'm not worried about it. But I had lunch with this guy. I don't know if he's in the audience, Richard Carback. Okay, he's not here. Well, he pointed me to a website that he just created called Quantum Doomsday Clock. Now, I haven't looked into this in total, but apparently this is his area of expertise. He spends a lot of time understanding what's going on in the industry and what's going on with qubits and all this other stuff. And so basically, his analysis says that quantum computers will be able to steal all your keys by March 8th, 2028 at 11:23 a.m., which is pretty specific. So apparently we have 2 years, 9 months, 26 days, 20 hours, 32 minutes, and 38 seconds to figure this out. So I'm now more worried about it than I was, as I said, when I got here today.
That's very insightful. Thank you for that.
Sounds like a cult. Doomsday.
No, but like if they can steal everything, then they can steal nothing, right? So.
Yeah, it's very curious. Okay, we have 5 minutes left, so I guess it's going to be the last question, and then maybe we can have Q&A, right? So, I mean, there is like this misconception that I think that lots of people think that all the privacy protocols are censorship resistant. Do you believe that that's the case?
No, not at all. Censorship resistance is really misunderstood in the ecosystem. Being censorship resistant doesn't mean that your transaction will eventually be included. It means that your transaction will be included without any important time delay. And important, that depends on application. In a financial use case, important is a few seconds. If there's a censorship of a few seconds, then that's a problem. And making a protocol fully deterministic without any way of censoring transactions, that's quite hard. And honestly, I don't think many people are working on this. People are usually neglecting this issue because they feel that this is not a problem up until someone sees something big. For instance, this is the case with single sequencer rollups. Like all single sequencer rollups, they have full power over the order of transactions that they receive. There is no limit. Or actually all protocols that have one block producer setup logic. So at each block, there's only one block producer, and that block producer has 100% control over the ordering of transactions inside that block. These are very important powers, and right now we don't feel them because not too many people care about blockchain. So yeah, I think censorship is an important problem, but it's something to tackle about in future. Even with the limited number of people that are using blockchain today, privacy is an issue. But I guess we don't feel effects of censorship that much, so that's why we don't discuss a lot. But yeah, it's an issue. And just a quick note, we solve it for the voting case in our voting application. That was the main point of the voting case. So please check out the white paper. It's like a very long explanation of how a censorship problem can be solved in terms of voting.
Yeah, so I think censorship resistance, I mean, the word itself is resistant. It's not like impenetrable. I mean, there's always going to be ways to censor it. And I don't think privacy protocols alone address it. It can help. It's part of your design, like do I do proof of work or do I have a very limited validator set? Obviously, that affects censorship resistance, but the privacy protocol itself cannot necessarily account for that. But, I mean, things like, even you have the network layer censorship resistance, right? Like, what happens if, China starts identifying this type of, cryptocurrency transactions and starts censoring them? I think not many people are dealing with that yet, but it can be done. So all I would say is, it's you cannot say censorship impenetrable. It's always a spectrum, and it's a constant battle. When they try to impose these things, we generally have tools to answer them, but it often results in, as you say, additional latency, additional UX drawbacks. So yeah, we have to be careful there.
I mean, I think censorship resistance is extremely important, particularly given what's going on with CBDC development or in the US stablecoins, which are backdoor CBDCs. One of the things that drew me to Zano is the fact that it's a hybrid proof of work, proof of stake, and it's actually private proof of stake. And I think moving more to proof of stake over time, and I think that consensus method is going to actually be beneficial for censorship resistance.
100%. Can't agree more with you guys. So now you guys know, except if you didn't know it before, privacy protocol doesn't mean the censorship resistance protocol. There are lots of dependencies starting from like storage, like physical infrastructure, and other points that guys mentioned. But yeah, let's build the future privacy together anyway. Let's be aware of the latest tech updates. Now we know when quantum computing will become us. So yeah, thank you for having us here today. If you have questions, you can send them here. I see we already have 3. Take 1, okay. Yeah, let's take the first one, you know, the first come, first serve. All these different types of privacy, how are I supposed to make a decision as a normal user? Different types of privacy, guys.
I think a good product, I mean, it depends what kind of privacy that you want, right? Like if you want transactional privacy, as a normal user, just use what works, right? I mean, like, although I'm from Firo, like Monero kind of works today for most cases, right? So, you know, Zano also can be used, but you don't really have to dive too deeply into like the details. Just find a bunch of experts that know what they're talking about and use what works. I don't think you have to be like, oh, should I be using something that uses, you know, this type of ZK and stuff like that. Leave that more to the experts. But there are a lot of like, you know, decent solutions out there today. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know, but personally, I would say that as a developer, do your own research. But as a user, like use the thing that everyone uses, you know. Like probably it's the best at the moment, and in the worst case scenario, the privacy is breached and there's a huge issue, then you are affected with a lot of different people, and it's okay, like the risk is minimized. So I think, you know, if you are not that knowledgeable of a user, and if you don't like doing research a lot, just use what everyone else uses, you know.
It's the developer's job to make it easy for the user, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, it's not yours. Choose the good UX.
I mean, people use banks, which in the US are already monitored by 13 different federal programs and agencies. And so people obviously don't spend a lot of time focusing on it. But in the end, it's going to come down to user experience. That's going to be what drives the actual adoption of privacy.
I would say like depends of level of your needs. If you just, you know, somewhere in Russia and you want to access some website which is basically forbidden in your country, maybe like, well, maybe Russia is bad example, but generally if you just want to access some, you know, website and which just doesn't have like big threats, you can just use a VPN, right? If you want to make some deeper research and you maybe don't want your government to know it, maybe use Tor, right? But if you, for example, activist and it's a life-threatening deal for you, maybe you should have a look into the Mixnets. That would be my advice. Well, thank you. We can't take more questions, but you can catch guys or myself afterwards.
Huge shout out to Aaron,
so
who
much.
just finished a 40-day fast and still on the panel. So crazy.